Well, hello guys, and welcome to another episode in our Tribulation Soldier COMS YouTube and Facebook. And we're running through a series at the moment about personal testimonies about myself and Sharon's life. And of course, guys, we'll be sharing a lot of teachings, a lot of sermons. So these sort of background videos are very, very important. And before this, I went through various things, like drugs, alcohol, womanizing, and all those sort of things, And really, I just want to build up this picture, just as sort of briefly as I can, just about who we are. But as always, guys, the overlying point is always God. It's always to show you who He really is. He really, really is, through our own experiences of Him, through the people around us, and so on, to paint you that picture of who He really is. And hopefully you'll see, throughout all the things that I've done and the way I've lived my life, the way God forgives, and the way God welcomes you back, the way that God just wipes all that stuff away and actually sorts your life out. But as always, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit notifications. As always, we've got a Birnie Family YouTube too, and kids have got the Birnie Family Fun YouTube, so that's all there for you to enjoy. Yeah, so running through the past, just having a look back. And generally as Christians, guys, one of the great things about God is that when you move into that life with Him, God really calls you to forget those things which are before. You refer back to them in testimonies like this, but generally that life is regarded as an old life. And when you give your life to Jesus, you're now in a new life, which is just tremendous, when you really experience this. But all too often, guys, people just see God up in heaven, you're doing this right and you're doing that wrong. And that's very rarely the way God's looking. God understands. I said this in the previous. God understands. So of course, I was talking about, the way that we grew up. And like I said, I'm so glad we have what we have these days, for kids. This age is just tremendous, with the internet, and you're able to communicate with people all over the world, see new things, learn new things. But of course, back when I was young, growing up on the streets, and when I was a teenager, didn't really have any of that. You had 4 channels on the TV, and the later 5, and of course then satellite television came in, like Sky and various things like that. And of course, later teens, internet was dial-up, and goodness me, it took ages to do anything on the internet, But now, I really do. I think it's such a great time. But back then, of course, we didn't really have a lot, and, you grow up wanting all the time. You just want. You want what people don't have. You can turn to crime, and I'd certainly had friends that turned to drug dealing later in life and stuff like that, and you've just got that sense of wanting all the time. But one of my sort of big breaks as a young person was when I got my first field motorbike, and this bike was I think it was a TS50, and the cylinder was bored out to an 80cc, so it was actually quite quick for a field bike. But when I got this thing, and we're up in the woods and different tracks and that, I really started to get that kind of real sense of freedom. That's probably why I have bikes now. And of course, when I've parties and would drink and would have girls up with us and all those things, and of course the majority of the time, it was just showing off. A girl on the back of the bike and going around the track really fast. Back then, just hardly anyone wore motorcycle helmets at all. I mean off road. And the showing off was actually really quite a big thing for most of us lads, trying to impress the ladies. That's just what it was like. And of course then you get to that stage when you're past your motorbike test and you get your first cars, and I'm sure you guys have seen them. You always see, like, the Italian Job, for example, is the classic minis, and I think I had about 5 minis altogether. As time went on, there were probably each one was as junky as the last one, and it went on to like bigger cars. And of course, that's what I love about today. You get these Nissan Skyline GTRs and stuff like that, and back then a 2-litre car was fast. A 2-litre 16-valve car was really, really fast. But most of the cars we had to begin with were 1100cc, 1300cc. You were so young, the insurance was quite expensive, for young people. But then I got my first real-wheel drive car, and at the time that would have been a really, really smart car, a really good one. And we got it. Dad knew a guy that had a garage, and it was a trade-in. It was a 1.8 Sierra, And of course, at the time, hot hatches were the things, you know, the Volkswagen Golf GTIs, and you know, all that type of cars, Cosworths, Sierra Cosworths, Escort Cosworths, XR2s, XR3s, XR4s, you know. So the Sierra was just a little bit under that, but it was rear wheel drive, and now came the drifting, you know. And I think, you know, as a young person, you don't really think of the consequences of what you're doing, you know. And I was driving fast a lot, you know. And of course, with the rear wheel drive, especially when it's wet out on the roads. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure you know what drifting is, but generally with a drift you can do it 2 or 3 different ways. But I used to just take the corner a little bit too fast, dip the clutch, and then just let the back slide out, a wee bit of throttle, just on the throttle, feather, round the corner, and you go, you know. So of course, having the girls in the car, absolutely great fun for them, and you know, made me look good. And then big bikes came along, and you know, my first big bike on the road, I was told at the time, you know, don't start in a 125 or a 250, you know, just buy a bigger bike and just get used to it, you know. And because of the way money was back then, I couldn't really afford to do that whole journey, you know, the 125, 250 and so on. So I got a hold of a GSX 750F, which was a really quick bike. You know, you're talking 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. You know, it was a really quick bike. And normally you get up to like 145 or 150 or something like that, you know. But I think when the bikes came along, it's where that freedom came back in a way, you know. And those field bikes a lot earlier. And now you've got the big bike, and you can go anywhere. And of course, the great thing about bikes was that, you know, they're very good in fuel. It's not like a car, you know. You can fill the tank up and you can go for quite some time on it. And but I am very, very lucky today to say that I could have honestly killed myself about 3 times. You know, there's once when you know, I was taking this big right hand corner out in the countryside, and the bike started drifting along the road. You'll see them in those compilation videos when a biker takes it a bit too fast. Sometimes they panic a bit and let the throttle off, and the bike sways out. And I almost hit this log lorry on this right hand bend. Another time, me and my mates try to find out how quick we could get from A to B, you know, up on the dual carriageway and stuff. That was pretty fast stuff. And I think if I'd been let loose in a Nissan Skyline GTR or something back then, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now. It is a tremendous feeling, you know, because, you know, you grew up having very little and you don't really have access to be able to travel yourself. You know, back then, guys, you know, there was only a few buses that ran, you know, and you couldn't really go anywhere. You could maybe go on your push bike a couple of miles either way. But when the bikes came along and the cars came along, you had that real freedom, you know. You could just go to different cities. And of course, the big thing, I don't know if it still really happens now as much, but you used to go out posing. You know, we've got this high street in our main town, and what you did on Friday and Saturday nights was go, you know, round and round. You just called posing, you know, you just went round and round and round like that. And most nights of the week it was the same. You know, guys were showing off for their cars and handbrakers, wheel spins, showing off to the girls, all that sort of stuff, you know. Wasn't such a big thing for us on Friday and Saturday nights as such, because we were clubbing. But you know, certainly if we didn't go clubbing that Friday night, it'd be out in the car. And it was all just showing off, you know. It was all just, you just wanted to attract the girls, you know. That was the big thing. And that's what most of the lads were like, you know. And luckily for me, I normally had quite a smart car, you know. It wasn't really expensive cars, but they were pretty smart. And of course, having that whole repertoire skills, you know, the big drifts and handbrake turns and J-turns, reversing back and spinning the car ring and stuff like that, you know, the ladies just lapped that. So it was a big sort of source of pride for us, you know, just to be able to do stuff like that. But I think, you know, in this Testament video, guys, I just want to show you through all those things, you know, that when you grow up like that, and God understands, you have this sense of wanting all the time. You know, you're always wanting more. You're always wanting to see more. You always want a better car or a better bike. And of course, for most of us back then, which is sure it's true today, we just couldn't afford those things. We just didn't have the money. And we didn't really have the prospects either. You know, you didn't really see beyond the street that you lived in. You know, that was the world. Our hometown was the world. But always that wanting, you know, and that pride. You know, you just wanted to show people you could drink more and drive faster and all that sort of things. But what happens is that becomes really destructive in your life. You know, where all you seem to be concerned about, and I'm sure most people have done it, is how people look at you. when actually underneath you're very unhappy. You're not really being fulfilled because you don't have the money. And of course, when I started driving, at 17, 18, drugs were now a real big thing in our hometown. And guys that I hung about with who had next to nothing started dealing, and they could make phenomenal amounts of money, just unheard of money among us, and they had all this stuff and the best car. They were quite low key with it all as well, though. They were quite smart that way. But I looked at them and I could absolutely see why, and it's even more now. I get it. I absolutely get it. Grew up very unhappy. Some of my friends had been hurt by their parents, physically and mentally and emotionally and stuff like that. And it's just no wonder at all they turn to crime or drugs, because you go from being that kind of loser, as they saw it in their mind, to having a pocket full of cash, and flashing it around a little bit among the friends and stuff. You could see it. And even me, we had a very limited income at the time. I could see it. I could see the temptation. And because I love bikes and cars and stuff, I thought I could do this job for a month or two and I could get a new motorbike or a new car or something like that, But thankfully with the drugs, I was always quite afraid of drugs, even though I'd taken quite a bit of it over the years. I didn't like that sense of being out of control. I liked to be in control. Even when I was drinking, I knew where I was, But it still didn't stop us taking them, But it scared me, and I really didn't want too much to do with it. The clubbing, the pubs, the playing pool and all that sort of stuff, that's sort of where I wanted to be. But guys, one of the things is it doesn't really matter the kind of experiences I've had. They are fairly common, really. But pride's still the same. Lust is still the same. Fear, we all feel these same emotions. And I think when you grow up like that, you find that you do have that need to impress people. You do have that need to have money in your pocket. You wish you had better than what you had. You see friends with bigger motorbikes, beautiful motorbikes, and you just live in that state of wanting. And it's not nice. It can make you very unhappy. You just cannot move forward. You cannot get out of where you are. And you can find, even what I did is I left school. I worked for 3 years in the trades, and then I went to college, because I really wanted to sort of move forward in life, and even with college it didn't really happen, wanting, just wanting and wanting and wanting. I think that if I get it, then God definitely gets it. There's many people who have grown up like this, and that feeling is a daily thing, the unhappiness you have to get past, just looking at your life and thinking, I would never call anyone a loser or myself or whatever, but it's just to term it in the world's way, I am a complete loser. And I was. I was a real loser underneath it all. But then comes God. And this is the kind of comparison I want to show you when it comes to a life with God. God's, your need that you have within you, for affirmation, for that affirmation, for somebody to say to you, that you're valued, you're a good person, you're funny, you're this, that, and the next thing, that's what you need. And this is what you get from God. That feeling of wanting really begins to dissipate. It really begins to fall away when you start walking with the Lord, because He knows how to satisfy you. You might think that getting a new car is satisfying, or having sex, or getting a wife. All those things are good. Of course they are. And God wants us to enjoy the money that we earn. That's me, and enjoy life and do this and do that. But in the inside, that wanting, I want, I wish. God fulfills that. And God, and you sort of wonder how does He actually fulfill that? Well, when you give your life to Jesus, your heart changes. All of a sudden that feeling of being alone is gone, because you've just experienced God. And you're being satisfied in a way that you've never really felt before. You're actually being satisfied in a way that is perfectly measured at just the right time and just the right way, because God knows you as a person, and He knows how to do that. God can't feed us ice cream morning, noon and night. He can't do that. That's just nonsense. But for the majority of the time, God knows how to do these things in our lives. And that wanting that destructive wanting changes to where you've got this desire. It's not an addiction, but it's an extreme desire to get to know him more, to see who he really is. Here's little old me in the little bedroom, and I'm experiencing the creator of the maker of heaven and earth. And I can assure you, it is fulfilling. I've had touches from God on a Sunday morning, you know, when we're at church and stuff like that, and I haven't needed to eat lunch or supper. I might eat lunch or supper. I'm just so full, and just don't feel hungry at all, don't feel thirsty, just because you've had that touch from God. But all too often, you may listen to a testimony like this and just think, well, that's okay for you. You're a generational Christian, you're a pastor just now. That does not matter to God at all. I said it in the last one, guys. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 9, genuinely, and I betrayed him, walked away from him, did all the things that I've been chatting about cars and just all that kind of terrible sort of lifestyle. I betrayed him. I kicked him in the teeth. I shoved him away. But yet, when I came back to him, and I'll go into that maybe in the next one, when I came back to him, he welcomed me with open arms. He really did. How much better would it be for you? I wish it's, again, regrets is very destructive. You have a tinge of regret. I wish I'd stayed with God, but he understands why. If it's a person who doesn't know him and gives her life to him, guys, that is a far purer thing. You know, that's a far purer thing. I still have the memories of, you know, the things that I did when I was away from God, and you still have them to a degree. But man, if you just give your life to the Lord, you can make it brand new. All that life's gone. That life's really, really gone. He will do it for anyone. If he would take me back after betraying him and forgive me and clean me up, he'll do it for anyone. There's no question about it. So guys, that is what life can be like for many of us. We just want. We just want. And I can assure you that when you get into that life with God, I'll teach and preach all about how, you know, that's the big thing, is how you'll find that fulfillment. Your desire will be met. So it's meant to feel like, you know, satisfaction, 100%, chapter closed, all those things that we need as people. And just on a last note about that as well, I really want to share this with you, that God doesn't want a person in poverty. I mean, okay, there's some missionaries and pastors and evangelists that are in that life. That's really quite extreme in the Christian world. But generally, you know, for families, people like myself, I mean, golf, fishing, boating, all that sort of stuff. God came to give us life, to live our lives, to enjoy life. I never thought I would have all this. I probably would have been dead anyway, but I never thought I would have all this. Got a great marriage, got lovely kids. Yes, me and Sharon argue. Yes, David and Emily do play up from time to time. You know, we've got a house, you know, our mortgage, and all that sort of things, just all that sort of normal stuff, you know. God knows, you know, the bikes and all that. We to live our lives, guys. He came to set us free. But what God does first is get rid of that pride, get rid of that lust, get rid of that wanting. And he replaces all that with him. And then he'll make that life happen for you. So guys, listen, thank you so much for watching. As always, I've got quite a lot to go through, which actually includes the relationship me and Sharon had before we came to God. And of course that was filled with sometimes violence, you know, sometimes a lot of arguments, a lot of alcohol-fueled arguments, doing the dirty on each other, you know, that sort of thing. And then when we came to God, things absolutely transformed, you know, it's just amazing. But it's even more amazing when I see other people getting the same thing. So as always, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit notifications. And as always, guys, you know, we've got our Birnie Family YouTube, and I do motorbike vlogs and all the stuff that you see, you know, all the sort of different things. And of course the kids do their own Birnie Family Fun stuff for kids, you know, so if you have kids, I hope you really enjoy that. For now, I'm always here.